Boom.
Hey folks, boom. Yeah, we are live and I'm just having a giggle because our next guest is going to be absolutely amazing. My buddy Mike, who's dialing in all the way from Kelowna, British Columbia in Canada. And the first thing I asked him before we went live, first of all, obviously, we're live here in the UK at 11 a.m., which means it's 3 a.m. in the morning for Mike. And the first thing, Mike, I asked you is do you have your caffeine already? But you said you don't need it, right?
No, man, it's hey, listen, nobody's gonna understand this reference, and that's okay. My favorite dance band from the 90s is a band called the KLF. A couple of Scottish guys who decided to go out and create
burn
samples
money
and change the world. It's 3 a.m., baby. It's 3 a.m. eternal, and I'm good to go.
Okay, KLF, huge in the UK, huge in the UK. They did that amazing stunt of burning 1 million pounds or something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They burnt 1 million pounds and then they deleted their entire music catalog, so they could not make money off of their catalog for 25 years. And last year, actually, they just put it back out again. They released a documentary called Who Killed the KLF, and it is there's one of the members of the KLF is a guy by the name of Jimmy Cotty, and there is a rumor out there thinking that he might be Banksy. So very, very interesting. If you ever want to go down an interesting rabbit hole with phenomenal music along the way, the KLF, Who Killed the KLF, that's the place to go. I adore that. I adore those guys. So being here at 3 a.m., I'm like, yeah, that's rad.
That's rad, man. Do you know what? I have a funny feeling that I know it's 45 minutes. It's going to go down through a blink of an eye, but I have a funny feeling there's a lot of rabbit holes that you and I could go through over a conversation. But first of all, let's just introduce yourself, Mike Chisholm, to the community here in London. It's the Elephant and Castle community. Let them know who you are and what you do.
Hey, so do I say, hey, Retribe world? This is the Retribe Nation. What are we here?
This is Elephant and Castle Nation.
Elephant and Castle Nation. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Chisholm. I'm born and raised in a place called Kelowna, British Columbia. We are about 300 kilometers, so about a 3 to 4 hour drive east of Vancouver, British Columbia. For us, it's not a big deal at all. I know for you guys, that's not very close at all. Everything's perspective in life, isn't it? I'm born and raised, like I said, I'm born in Kelowna, British Columbia. I host the way that Nick and I got connected was I host a podcast called HeCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. It's a men's mental wellness podcast. The reason I host that is because my wife is building, her and her talented team are building an app called He Changed It. It's a men's mental wellness toolkit that can, an amazing app that is being created right now, and I host the podcast for it, and so that's how our circles crossed each other. But also do a lot of other stuff in life. Nick's a former hockey player. I mean, in Canada, hockey is religion, and so we can bond over that. I'm also a broadcasting nerd. He's also a broadcaster. My favorite broadcaster of all time is David Letterman. I host a David Letterman podcast as well. So all sorts of fun connections. And like Nick said, the rabbit holes that we could go down, unprecedented. This is going to be a lot of fun and the first of many conversations that we have.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Mike, for introducing yourself. And it's really poignant that, obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of people feeling isolated. What I've known all of my life through all of those feelings of bereavement, of isolation, of division, is that community and coming together and talking has always left me feeling in a safe space and feeling a lot better than when it was before. And yesterday in the UK, I don't know if it was in North America, but it was Suicide Prevention Day. And it was a day that flew way under the radar, because this nation, the UK, they've lost a monarch. And I'm not taking away from anything. Everyone has their own sense of dealing with bereavement and loss, but it was a day that normally gets a lot of hashtags. And I was looking yesterday on Twitter, and it was all about King Charles and the Queen and the deaths, and Meghan and Kate and William and all these kind of fights and inheritance tax. But really, people, the whole idea of this day, which which I love awareness days. I just love the actions and stuff that they produce, did fly under the radar. So it's something that, because of the work that you do with the HeCast and He Changed It, we can really kind of talk about, and hopefully, you know, if some people resonate with anything that we say along the way around suicide prevention and the ideas of getting into that place in life when you're just like, you know, a place where I was I didn't care if I lived or died. I was just in this place of like just muck, just sitting in this silo of self-pity and desperation and depression and just knowing there were ways out, but not even wanting to ask for help. You know, just
Yeah.
sitting there going, you know, I can't ask for help because I'm a man and I have to sort out all my own problems. So maybe over the next 45 minutes, a couple of the rabbit holes we can go down are probably quite fun. But let's first of all, let's talk about, you know, how did He Changed It come around? How does it resonate with you in your journey, and maybe the people around you, and we can go from there.
Well, for sure. And just to go back to the first thing that you said, I mean, it's really, I think I'm a big fan of competition being trumped by collaboration. I think collaboration beats competition every single time. It's you know, competition has its place, and I understand it. You know, it comes to athletics, when it comes to there are different areas. You know, if you're racing to build a new technology or something like that, competition has its place. I'm not discounting what that is for all the sports fans out there, and other applications where it's necessary. But to me, collaboration beats up on that every day. You can have groups that have similar goals in mind, but if they kind of look at each other and acknowledge each other and trade notes and maybe try and build each other to be better, I think that that's a better place to be. And the thing about that, though, is that it's the admission that you're not alone. And the thing about men is that there are so many men out there that live these, and I mean, I think he used the word too. My wife and her team, and He Changed It. They use this word all the time. They siloed themselves. They put themselves into silos, and many times men are going through stuff. Maybe they're burdening responsibility. That's a huge one. And they might think that they're alone in things, but actually, if they can collaborate with other men, and talk about what it is that is driving them, what it is that is you know, eating at them, that kind of a thing. This is something that what we found is that women do just naturally. Many times women will get together, 2 or 3 of them will get together, and they will, can we curse on this podcast or on this show? Are we allowed to curse? No cursing. Okay.
No.
Well, I just want to make sure. I host
Yeah.
a men's mental wellness podcast. We curse a lot.
Yeah.
You get women, they'll get together and they will decompress by saying some pretty outlandish things sometimes, and they don't follow through on any of these things, but they talk about what they're going through, and they're like, no, I look at it like it's a glass, you know, and we have this glass that just every time something happens to us and our emotions get you know, compromised or affected, that glass starts to fill up. And many times all it takes to empty that glass is just to talk to somebody about it. And women inherently do that. They talk to each other and they continually empty their glass. Well, men don't do that. Men allow their glass to get fuller and fuller and fuller. They think they're the only ones that have any liquid in that glass. And it gets to the point where it's right to the brim. And even one little drop, it could be somebody saying something wrong, you know, a little piece of news that happens and they just internalize it the wrong way. Something little teeny tiny, and it's like one little drop comes onto that glass and that glass just spills all over the table. And all we got to do is just empty the glass, and we can do that by collaborating with each other and whatnot. So I just think it's really important, especially you talk about Suicide Prevention Day. Oh my gosh, you talk about a permanent act to a temporary situation. You've felt it. You've been there. So many guys have been there where just in the moment, it feels like the pressure is so intense that it will never get better, but it's temporary. Everything in this world, everything is temporary. And one of the things that He Changed It is doing, we can talk about I can go back to the origins if you want to, but I'll give you a chance to talk, Nick, I promise.
Not about me.
One of the origins of he changed it is the idea of men being able to collaborate with each other, and tools, real tools, real resources that you can carry around. Candy and the team, my wife's name is Candace, I call her Candy. Candy and her team have coined the phrase prevention in your pocket. That's something that they use internally. They talk about this kind of thing, and one of the preventions is suicide. But it's not just suicide. It's how else does our glass spill over? Well, it's also violence. You think about health, it's heart attacks, it's strokes. Our bodies will react to this if it goes unchecked in all sorts of ways. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're very, very passionate about this. We want to change the world. My wife does not like, the reason that she founded He Changed It was she does not like the world her two boys are inheriting, and it's time to change the culture. It's time to do something about it. It's time to solve the problem. He Changed It is one of the ways that this problem is going to be solved. What you're doing, I mean, collaborating with all sorts of people who have like-minded visions, who understand this unprecedented problem needs attention. It's been swept under the rug far too long, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to change it. So there you go.
So I'd like to go into kind of like, let's step way back into almost kind of like pre He Changed It, because where a lot of the struggles that I had on, which are some things that you mentioned, which are these ideas of like not living up to, and some of these things, and they start filling up the glass. Because growing up where I grew up in Western Canada, and I know the same things happened here with people growing up in the UK, is that there are certain pressures, ideologies, cultural ideologies that are put upon you, growing up, going to education, higher education, getting a degree, meeting your high school sweetheart at university, getting married when you're 25, having kids when you're 27, already started a mortgage, with no help from
Paint by
anybody.
numbers, right?
You get the white picket fence and the 2 point whatever kids now. And if you hadn't achieved those certain things by 32 years old, you're a failure. You haven't lived up to these things that were put upon us. And so we're put into all of these compartments as young, growing, beautiful minds of curiosity and endeavoring into, manhood and initiations. And we're not given those moments, and we're compartmentalized into what our parents are telling us, what their parents told us, what coaches are telling us, what teachers are telling us. And we're not given the space to figure our own lives out. And then because we haven't achieved certain things, like for me, a real big thing was at 45 years old when I got sober, was, not being a biological father, even having, going through some miscarriage and an abortion, and these horrible events in my life where I thought I was going to be what everyone told me I was going to be great at. Even from a young age, I babysat kids, and people are like, Nick, you're going to be such a great dad. So all of these things were put on me, Mike, as a young adult, as a man, in my mid 30s. Like, why aren't you a dad yet? And I felt like such a huge failure, not in the business world, not in anything else, but just not being a biological father. Yeah. So that's just one example of the many that I hear about all the time, and I'm sure that you've heard too. But I want to kind of go into like what was the pressures that you've seen men go through? What were the ones that you were put under to have achieved certain things by certain times?
Well, it's funny, I'll go back to He Changed It just for a second, and then I can really speak to that. When the team was figuring out what to target and how to help, they were looking at pain points that men go through. And there were a few of them. There were about 4 or 5 pain points that became really, really high. And actually, number one on the list was a lack of purpose, not knowing what the purpose was, or having a disillusioned purpose. And I think you did a really good job of speaking to that, about how we look at the world, we look at what maybe the world we grew up in, or what our parents have told us to do. And we get to a certain age. And you said, okay, if you're not by 32, you haven't achieved these things, you're a failure. There's also the other component where there are guys who put their head down and they move forward to try and achieve these things. They do achieve these things, and they realize they're not happy. They raise their head maybe for a second, and they think, whoa, okay, I did all the things you told me to do. What the heck is going on? Why aren't I happy? And really it comes down to a lack of awareness of what the self is, what and many times there are guys in their 40s right now that are coming to terms with this, figuring out if they are in the right marriage, if they did do the things that are true to their heart. And many men who are in a situation where they got all these moving parts around them, all these spinning plates, they don't know if they're living their purpose, whatever that might be. And that's a huge, huge thing. And if you deal with that alone, that is an incredibly difficult truth and situation to negotiate through. And so it's I think you're bang on when you talk about these expectations that have been set up, whether it's culturally, whether it's you grew up in a religion or a household where people had certain expectations, and we don't actually look at the why of what it is that we're doing. Men are really good. We can be racehorses sometimes, right? A racehorse gets blinders put on. You think about that phrase blinders, where there's these flaps that are put over the horse's eyes, so all they can see is forward, and they put their head down and they just go, but they don't necessarily know where they're going or why they're going there. So I think that's a really important part of he changed it. My wife worked in the not-for-profit sector, and she dealt with this charity that had dealt with women and children, and all the time there were guys coming in needing help, and there was nothing for them. So you couple everything we've been talking about with the idea that there's also not a ton of resources out there for guys. For me personally, I mean, I can relate with you. I didn't have any biological kids either, but my wife has these two amazing boys, and it's so funny how there's a biological expectation or a cultural expectation. And my wife and I've been together for 10 years now. And these two boys are my best friends in the world. And our eldest, my stepson, he had a daughter 4 years ago. My granddaughter, Alara is her name. She's my everything. Her and I are best friends in the whole world. And when it comes to things like, it may sound corny, but love is everything. It really is. And this is where that collaboration is so important, where you can, let people into your heart and you can do these things. Love is the answer to everything. My granddaughter and I are best friends, and it fills, scratches an itch, whatever you want to call it, fills a void, whatever phrase you want to use. There are ways through these collaborations where sometimes something can happen that's even better than what the expectation would have been, but it's being present and being aware. And I don't know if I answered your question wholly or not, so you can put me back on track, but I just think that's conversations like these, and guys listening to them and applying it to where they're at in life, that it can change lives, and it quite literally can save lives. I've seen it happen, and that's what you're doing right now. And I just appreciate that so much, Nick.
Oh, thanks, buddy. No, you did answer, and you nailed the kind of the next thing to go along to it, which is this talk about purpose. Because again, we're taught that our jobs are our purpose, and yeah, when I was like at 17, 18, it was like everyone was going to the University of Saskatchewan, and they were becoming teachers mainly, and then lawyers. If you went into some other kind of stuff, but banking and stuff, but it was really like and my father was a teacher, so I thought I needed to be a teacher. I never, and I've reflected on now. I'm nearly 52. I would have probably been a great teacher, but it's taken me to 45 years old to start to find some purpose in my life. And what the lack of purpose did to me, Mike, it isolated me. And that's what kind of got me into the silo of me trying to find out all my own problems to fill that hole, and as you mentioned, we start filling stuff in a silo, and it's just going to get plugged, and eventually topple over, which is what happened to me. But at least it put me in a place of surrender. And I think this is I suppose what the messages that I like to try to get across to people is that there are ways to not get to where I got, by taking some actions, by listening to some stories. Storytelling, I think, is huge and important in the circles of being able to listen to other people's experiences, so that we don't have to necessarily go down, I won't say rabbit holes because I like that, but the pitfalls of life.
Yes.
And end up in those places, because it just takes those kind of safe spaces where people can listen to other people's experiences. But yeah, getting back to the idea around purpose, that it was something that found me. It wasn't something that I found. And what I've discovered, Mike, is that a lot of us we kind of have these character traits that are really designed very well around purpose. There are people who are very outgoing. There are people who are very insular. There are people who are really good with medicine. There are people who are really good with law. There are, and can have these inherent traits. And it's really about creating space for ourselves to be allowed to be guided, to find our purpose. And I think that's what I like to tell people nowadays is just stop looking, and give yourself time to be guided into these spaces where you're like, you know what, I don't like practicing. I'm not telling anyone to quit their job. But if you're not feeling fulfillment in your job, then at least be aware that there are alternatives out there, and that the bottom line in financial gain isn't the bottom line in life. And that was the other big lesson that I had to learn, is that the filling the bank with money didn't fill the emptiness inside. It was ultimately connection with other folks who'd experienced the things that I'd experienced that started to fill that hole. And then understanding that I could help other people. Like at my age, if people said, what's the secret of life? Because I think we're always asking that. Why am I here? Why am I here?
Yes, definitely.
And for a guy like me, it's really simple. It's help other people, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it is for a guy like me. Just wake up in the morning and put yourself in a place to be able to help other individuals. And it gives me the sense of freedom that I've never experienced in life before. And that's from being a live TV presenter, being a professional ice hockey player, to, running my own production company, my own agencies.
Yeah.
They were great and they were fun and I learned a lot from it. But man, I do not get anything like the satisfaction that I get today by helping other people. So in terms of you and what your guys are doing, how do you work with men to be able to say, hey, let's help you find purpose?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head in a couple ways. I think you hit a few nails and a few heads in what you just said. And to answer that question, or to use that as a jumping off point for the evolution of our discussion, many men think their job defines them or their role defines them. I am an accountant. I am a father. I am the things that we do not define us. And I think that that's a really important distinction. Sometimes they can align beautifully and those things can all be the same thing. But again, I think it comes down to being present and understanding who we are inside and how maybe a job might scratch the itch in a big way. But I think that there's a presence there, an awareness there that many men just don't necessarily have, where they think their job defines them, or the money thing, okay, just if I accumulate more, that will fill that hole, scratch that itch, and create and be that, reveal itself that it is my purpose, when it in fact doesn't. And I think that emotional being present, learning about yourself, drawing a line in the sand between the roles that we have in life versus who we are in life. Those two things are not, in my experience, not the same thing. Now, where it comes down to helping people, oh my gosh, that is a silver bullet right there. There's a few silver bullets in life in my experience. And I mean, we've done 110, 112 episodes. By the way, we're going to have you on an episode of HeCast, just so you know. The target is there. We need Nick to tell his story. Your story is an unbelievable story of progression, ups and downs, and where you ended up is phenomenal. This clarity that you have right now, and it becomes so clear. And this is, again, going back to that collaboration. If we just talk to each other a little bit about how we felt and helped each other become aware of things. And this is where He Changed It's at right now. We are in infancy. The app is, really, really basic compared to the roadmap of what's going to happen. We're just at a place right now where there are already dozens of guys going in there every day and using the app. And the community is just starting to be built. We're going to go into the place of building, small groups where it becomes this thing, hopefully that'll catch fire and go around the whole world, where guys can get together and have these small groups to talk about exactly this stuff. Because if we do that, then we can get to a spot like what you're talking about, those two silver bullets, helping people, um, I'm a huge fan of David Letterman. He's my broadcasting hero. I started a podcast in his name, and have had a ton of his folks on the podcast already. And I'm just a huge fan of this guy. One of the things that David Letterman, through all the success that he's had in his life, he's talked about this. He's talked about how much he helps people, and he doesn't talk about it. Other people do. It's kind of gotten out. He's a really generous guy. He's done a lot of things to help people. He doesn't publicize that at all. He just leaves it privately, but it's been talked about. When he has been cornered and he's been asked about it, he talks about it like it. He literally talks about helping people like it's a selfish pursuit.
Yeah.
And that leaves people scratching their heads. And he has said, no, you don't understand. Helping people is selfish, because when you help somebody either have a light bulb moment, achieve a goal, achieve a dream, you yourself feel so good for doing that. You're given back, call it, karmic energy, whatever you want to call it. You helping people makes you feel so good. It's almost it's a selfish pursuit when you do it just for the sake of helping somebody else. It's selfish. The other thing that I will tell you, and I don't know if this quite answers your question, but I think it begs to be talked about, is gratitude. Being grateful, being able to be present in a situation and to pull out and to say, okay, hold on. What are some things that I'm grateful for? And actually to be, to take a look at the life that you have. And it might be in a mess right now, but guess what? We always have stuff to be grateful for. There's always something that we can dig down and we can find. And personally, that's how I start every day. I start every day by writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And really, like, point form, I'm not a journal guy, but I do understand the power of journaling. One of the things you said earlier too is talking about sharing. One of the things that screwed us as a little bit is technology. And I'm not saying telephones and distractions and Twitter and all these. I'm not talking about any of that. What I'm talking about is the printing press. I'm talking about the fact that we used to come from, doesn't matter what your culture was. Every culture on this planet has evolved from a storytelling culture, where stories are passed down and shared and things. And as technology has grown, and a lot of those stories have now been printed into books and things, there are some people out there, a lot of guys who aren't readers. They're not people who share stories intrinsically. So let's find ways to do that. Certainly what you're doing is a prime example of that, where no, let's start trading some stories here. Iron sharpens iron. Let's start sharpening each other. And in that, the process of the sparks, of the clanging of the sharpening of the iron, other people see and hear that, and they too become sharpened. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this conversation. Are you kidding me? I'm starting my day today at 3 a.m. and I'm not going to bed, back to bed after this. My day is going to be a kick butt day, because iron sharpens iron. We're starting our day by sharing our story and talking about these things, all for the betterment of people around us. And I mean, gosh, what bigger of a privilege is there than that? This is so much fun. I love this.
I love it. I want to ask a quick question about Letterman. Is Letterman sober? Is he sober guy?
So David Letterman went sober back in, I want to say, I might have the year wrong. I'm going to say somewhere between 1981, 82. So he had a show, you talk about him. So David Letterman went to Los Angeles to seek his fortune. He was a broadcaster in the Midwest of the United States, and knew that he wanted to host the Tonight Show. He wanted to replaced Johnny Carson back in the day, and we're really dating ourselves even saying that name. A lot of people don't even know who Johnny Carson is, but at one point Johnny Carson was the most famous person on the planet in many circles. He was by far the most successful broadcaster on the planet, and so David Letterman saw him as a hero. He got in his beat up old pickup truck. He went to Los Angeles. He learned how to be a stand-up comedian. All in that process, he was drinking like a fish. And he talks about this. I'm not telling any tales out of school. A big network called NBC gave him a television show called The David Letterman Show. It was a morning show. There had been nothing like that on TV. It was goofy. It was crazy. It was an unbelievable show, but it didn't find its voice because it was on in the morning, and that show got canceled. And at that point, Dave realized that he was drinking too much, and he got sober, and that's when NBC gave him late night, and he did everything that he could to build that brand and build it. He did, and that was a huge step in his life. So yeah, he got sober a long time ago.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me whenever I hear people talk about people who express a need to be of service and help other people. They tend to come from that community.
Yeah.
Such by and really the ultimate act of that is to for me and for the program that I'm in is about ego reduction. And trying to live a life of humility and trying to, as you say, be of service and help other people. And the gratitude thing, I think if you look it up, I mean, the definition of gratitude is showing appreciation for and then kind of returning it. I can't say it by words, but you show appreciation for having some food that a fridge full of food, but then the gratitude is the action that you take in being grateful, which is maybe you see somebody who might need a sandwich or a coffee, who might be struggling a little bit, or so gratitude is always like it's symbiotic. You have something and then you help somebody with it, and I love that idea of gratitude because again, it's gratitude as action. It's not just sitting there going, oh, I've got a full fridge. It's like I've got a full fridge. I'm grateful. Now, what can I do about it? How can I help somebody with it? And Mike, I always tell this story that in Egyptian hieroglyphs, all of the gods are depicted with left hands, and the left hand was for bestowing, for giving, and of course, only gods can only give; they can't take. But I tell people, I like, would look down and what have you got? And it's like I've got a left hand and a right hand, and what's the right hand for? And the right hand is for receiving. So we must always be in a place to give, right? To give, to show gratitude and to give and to help. But this is the crux, and this is what I really want to try to get through this message, is that we have to be able to receive. So I can love someone as much as possible, but unless I can receive that love back, I'm still going to get blocked. And this is where for me life changed. What was it? Because it was in those two words of help me to somebody that saved my life. And that was at 45 years old, dying of acute pancreatitis, liver failure, kidney failure. The dehydration, the malnutrition were the real kickers for me. They were the ones that the doctor was like, these are the things that are actually taking you out. It was in that bit where the ego was reduced enough, where my old ideas of masculinity were reduced to rubble, because the old ideas, and this is what we try to challenge people on, are what were the ideals around masculinity that we were brought up in, which is real men don't cry, real men don't ask for help, and real men can sort out their problems on their own. These ideas almost killed me, but yet they're the cornerstone of what people think a real man is. And these are the things that we, through storytelling, we can unlearn these things to learn that saying help me and showing vulnerability and compassion to yourself in a moment of absolute desperation will save your life. Now, the problem was I knew for 10 years I needed to ask for help, but I didn't have it in me because, again, of these old ideas of masculinity of not asking for it. And this is why I say to people, we need to this is the symbiotic relationship of giving and receiving, of we need to be proactive in communicating with people, because sometimes a man will say, hey, I'm really good, bank balance is full, wife is great, kids are at school, job is awesome, I'm set, I'm good. But I was such a good bullshitter, and I swore, a good BSer. I was such a good BSer that people couldn't really get into the core that I was a scared, broken 8-year-old child who felt like a fraud and an imposter, and I was masking it all, and I was drinking in the basement. So this is why I think we need to also take actions to have a list, and this is why I tell people too, is to have a list of the 10 people who keep telling you they're fine. But they're the ones that we need to be reaching out to. They're the ones to go, are you really? Do you want to go for a coffee? And we can start challenging our friends to say, let's go have a coffee and let's chat, and then be honest about how your day is. Well, my day's not that good. You know, I think that this is the other thing is sometimes we want to mirror how everybody's doing, and the mirror is in the Instagram world, right?
Oh yeah,
Which is
yeah.
an image, it's not a truth. And
No.
really getting down to people to be able to say, I'm not okay, you know? And so have your friends around you that you can for, and that you can also say, I'm not feeling great.
Well, Nick, I mean, this is one of the I'm so grateful that you brought this up because again, it's funny when we started HeCast, uh, I think it was we had a running joke about it. I mean, and on HeCast we have all sorts of different people, from as simple as a man with a story. And I mean, what man doesn't have a story who has learned something, and all the way to counselors, life coaches, athletes, filmmakers. We've had all sorts of different folks on HeCast to talk about this stuff. And we had a running joke near the beginning of it. It was the first 30 or 35 episodes or something like that, where, and it didn't matter. We could have a stand-up comedian or a therapist on. And the V word that you just brought up, it came up every single episode. It came up in so many of and out of nowhere too, how vulnerability is another one of those silver bullets. And how guys just, we are in the cultures of the modern day world in 2022, don't are not akin to men naturally intrinsically being vulnerable. But again, it is a silver bullet. And this is that collaboration that we're talking about. I think collaboration can be subbed with being vulnerable with each other in many ways, in many respects. And it is such a tremendous thing how just that little act of actually, you know, being in a place where you're safe, whether it's a person when they say how you doing, and they actually mean it. They want to know. It's not just a pleasantry going, hey. You know, sometimes people sub the words how you doing with hey. No, but if somebody asks me how I'm doing, and if there's somebody who are in my kind of my circle of trust, I actually will tell them, yeah, I'm actually not doing really, really good today.
Yeah.
And holy cow, there's power in that. There's power in being able to admit that I'm not doing very, very, very well. I'm emptying some of the glass that we, you know, to use that analogy again, just by saying I'm not doing well. Well, what's going on? I'm feeling pressures at work. Oh, really? And that turns into problem solving many times. But even if it doesn't, even if there's nothing that can change, the act of saying I'm not going at work very well right now, so helps things inside. It helps, it takes you away from the danger zone, whatever that danger zone might be. Whether it is violence, whether it is bad behavior, drinking, or substance abuse of some sort, whether it is you know, suicidal thoughts, whether it is whatever that might be, whether it is a heart attack. Just talking about this stuff gets us out of that danger zone. That's an important thing. The other thing you brought up was the idea of the expectation on us that we're not supposed to cry, that stigma. I think if there was anything that was at the beginning of Candace and her journey with He Changed It, it was destroying that stigma. We decided after, you know, that vulnerability thing kept hitting us over and over and over again in the podcast. And I mean, we're the little company that could, because our goal is that we're going to be a worldwide company, world-changing company, culture-changing company. And the culture I'm talking about isn't geographical. It's the stigma that men have had throughout all this time, that it's not good to cry, it's not good to show emotions and all that. And so what we're doing is we're actually unabashedly taking back the phrase man up. And the idea of manning up, which in the old locker room talk idea, is that you push something down. You don't let this bother you. You don't cry. You don't do any of these things. Well, we're taking that phrase back. And what manning up is going to be when we're done with it is the idea of actually being aware as to where we're at in our situation. And no matter what it is, whether it's crying, whether it's releasing, whether it's going to therapy, whether it's admitting that we need help, whatever it is, manning up is actually going to be, no, I'm going to take responsibility for where I'm at and what's going on right now. I'm going to take responsibility for that. And I am going to solve that, be a part of that. I'm going to take responsibility. It's the opposite of what the culture has told us that manning up is, where we just ignore it. No. Manning up is actually taking responsibility for it and being an example. And so we're taking that phrase back and we're going to redefine it. We're going to rebrand manning up.
I love it. And you know, like we're of a certain age where I'm sure your movie heroes would probably be the same movie heroes I have.
Sure.
And one of my movie heroes, one of the greatest movie franchises of all time, are the Rocky films.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's funny, like if somehow we can get in touch with Sylvester Stallone, I would love it, because I have sent him messages on Instagram before.
Awesome.
But if you think about it, this is the ultimate man up man, because
Yep.
if you think about Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4 particularly, when like the bits in those movies that get the hair tingling, the every, you know, are not the fights. They're the bits where he goes to Adrian, I'm scared. Or, you know, in Rocky, is it Rocky 2 where Mickey dies? I'm not, you know, and just cries, you know, he lets it all out. We're looking at one of the most vulnerable, I know he's a movie character, but the most vulnerable displays of emotions that a man can have. And then though that vulnerability gets turned into this ultimate power, which enables him to win, you know, against all odds. And I think that if we can start to learn vulnerability, compassion, and love, which are considered woo-woo words, are so much stronger than suck it up, take one for the team, you know, go through a wall, let's bleed and die to win, like all those other kind of really horrible masculine phrases. If we can start to learn that they are far more powerful, you know, being tender is far more powerful, and you can accomplish far much more. And we need to, this is the bit that I'm at, is unlearn the ideas of masculinity to relearn, you know, new ways of being masculine. And I love your idea of re-owning these things, of manning up. Like, what is a man? A man is someone who has a balance of emotions, who needs to cry. We have a, you know, especially when we're younger, when we're 8 years old and we're told, you know, even in that famous movie with Tom Hanks, there's no crying in baseball. You know, we hear it. There's no crying in hockey. There's no crying in football. Yes, there is. Yeah, there's Jason Wilson, who's a wonderful teacher. He's got this beautiful book called Battle Cry. And if you
Jason Wilson, that guy is a phenomenal example. You look at what he's doing in he's in Detroit or just outside Detroit, and what he's building there, doing with these boys to literally try and rewrite and create a culture of his inner city. I mean, I love what he is doing over there. Just
by saying, I honor your tears.
Yep.
I honor your tears. I'll sit with you, my son.
Yep.
Let's cry together. It's making me emotional now, man. Like, this is it. Let's just sit with each other and let it out. You know, and I honor those tears. And like I said, I'm tearing up now, so I'm going to honor mine and say that, you know, when a tear comes up for me, it means a truth is being spoken.
Yeah. Hey guys, guess what? If something is making you emotional, where tears are welling up, that's a good thing. Emotional movement is a good thing. It's a powerful thing. It's so much more powerful than stifling. The reason that you have to stifle it is because it's powerful. And why would you not lean into something that is powerful? And the reason is because of what we've talked about: culture, stigma, whatever the background that you came from, you know, and it was folly. It was wrong. Whoever taught that was in error in doing that. And like you say, it's so important. If men love to feel powerful, we love that, the idea of that there are these biological things inside of us. Well, guess what? That emotion is power, and it's learning how to hone it. It's learning the value of it. It's learning the things that it can do for you. And this is an extremely important point that you and I are hitting here, and the fact that you are that in touch with your emotions, that it emotionally moves you. I'll tell you this, and by the way, guys, it happens as you get older. I think as you get older, you get wiser, and that wisdom comes subconsciously as well as consciously. And subconsciously, you know, the right razor commercial, if it has the right music with the right sentimentality, can make me cry in my 40s. It can make me tear up. Like, what the heck is going on here? It's a razor commercial. Why am I, or a Budweiser commercial? Oh, that horse is friends with that puppy. They're crossing the lines of species, and friendship is ruling all. And it can just it's such a good thing. And I think there's a clue in that. We obviously, as we age, get wiser through the School of Hard Knocks, through experience, through our brain doesn't finish developing, gosh, until we're in our mid-20s, and then it keeps learning. And by the time we get to this place, emotions, many men will talk about how as they get older, emotions come quicker. Yeah, because it's the way it's supposed to be. We've just many times been in a surrounding that has not given us that incentive to lean into that. So for all the guys that are out there listening to this right now in particular, or the gals, or someone in their life that has a guy that they love, I think there's a lot of amazing nuggets in this conversation that are worth exploring and taking a look at.
Oh yeah, beautiful. You know what? Like I told you, 45 is gonna fly by, man.
Oh my gosh, look at that! Holy cow! Just like that. I love it. I love it. I love being in the flow like this, man.
What's the next kind of 6 months, year look like for what you guys are doing, and the he cast and he get changed it?
Well, it's exciting. Yeah. It's all just really, really exciting. Like, Candace and her team have gotten the app to a place where it's, guys are being helped already. HeCast is growing. Our audience is growing, which is great. We're having phenomenal guests on. We just had, oh, by the way, for folks who ever watched the show Sons of Anarchy, we just had one of the stars of Sons of Anarchy on the show. His name is Kim Coates. He lasted the entire series, which is saying something. It's saying something because, that's a series about bikers and all that stuff. And not everybody lasted the whole series. Not everybody lasted one season, never mind the whole series. He played Tig on the show, and Kim came into our studio. I do a lot of Zoom podcasts, but we also have a beautiful studio here that it can look really gorgeous when we have an in-person one. Kim came in the studio and we had a phenomenal conversation. So the latest episode of HeCast, you can go to hechangedit.com for all the information on He Changed It, including the links to HeCast. HeCast is on YouTube. It's where on all the podcast platforms as well. So we're having a lot of very cool things happen because of that. We're starting to get notice. The Canadian Mental Health Association has linked up with He Changed It, and they started to build courses for He Changed It. So the first course that they built exclusively for He Changed It, and you can get it in the app, it's free, is a course called It's Tough to Talk. And it's a click-through course, the first of its kind that's ever been built from the Canadian Mental Health Association, where guys can literally click through and learn a lot of the stuff that you and I, Nick, have been talking about this time here. The next 6 months, I think, is going to be transformative. I think there's going to be an infusion of investment that comes in, and this little app that could, the really at the end of the day is just a small offering right now. That roadmap is going to start to be built, and these features are going to be added to it. All sorts of stuff is coming for He Changed It, and I could not be more proud of what my wife and her team are building. I'm not doing any of the heavy lifting. All I'm doing is hosting the podcast. They're the ones that are actually doing all the real work. And not to diminish what I'm doing with the show. The show is awesome. It's great, but I just look at what they're doing, and it's just it's magic to me. Yeah. And I look at it, and it's like, you get your phone, you look at the work that goes into building an app is all the behind the scenes stuff is bonkers. And so it's going to be a good 6 months, I think, with a lot of stretching, a lot of growth, and a lot of helping others. And that, what could be more exciting than that? It's not an easy world. There's lots of problems. It's okay. I'm glad it's complex. I'm glad there's lots of challenges that we have, because accomplishing some of these challenges, there's no better feeling in the world. And I think a lot of men can identify with that. It feels really good to accomplish something, whether you're playing a video game all the way up to getting a promotion. When you work hard for something and you achieve the goal that you've been working hard for, there's a level of satisfaction that comes with that. And We want to do that here so other men can do that in their lives. Legions of men can find satisfaction, clarity, release, freedom, all of these amazing, amazing things that our world so desperately needs right now. There's a lot of darkness out there. We need more light. Nick, you and what you guys are doing, everything that's going on with the communities that you're building, you're a light in the world, man. And we want to be that as well. Iron sharpens iron. Let's light the world together.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mike. Amazing way to wrap it up. I think I'd like to, I know we're going to try to do a Zoom with Candace, and
Yeah,
I'd like to get her on this live too. And
absolutely.
And yeah, let's stay in touch. I think that what as I'll leave it at anybody, like, again, like, knowing that yesterday was mental suicide prevention day. Check on people. Don't, like,
yeah,
that's my thing, is that I need to be more proactive in my ability to check in on people, rather than just taking people's word for it, saying that they're okay. Let's have that list on the fridge of 10 friends and just make sure you reach out to them, not the ones that are reach out to, but be particularly cautious of the people who are saying everything's okay.
yeah.
And be proactive in people in reaching out to people. Don't wait to say help me to somebody.
No,
It works both ways. So Mike, thanks for joining me. I hope you get a nap in later, because naps are amazing.
I love this. Oh no, man, I'm charged up. I'm fired up. I'm fired up
Okay.
for the day. This is a phenomenal thing. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you and everybody here. And I just echo what you're saying. Yeah. Sometimes, because now that we've talked about this, we've kind of stirred up the dirt a little bit at the bottom of the water, and it's like, oh, okay, there's an awareness that's here because we've talked about this. Anybody who's listened or watched this, now if you go to 2 or 3 people that are in your life and you say, hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'm doing good. No. I love you. I care for you. I really want to know how you're doing. I think that you just touched on something, and see the cool things that come from just doing that with 2 or 3 people, where somebody actually opens up about something, and maybe you can workshop some things together or whatever, and see how much better you leave them. Just like you've left me better from, instead of sleeping right now doing this, you've left me better for a day. We can do that for each other. And thank you very much for this opportunity to sharpen each other. Iron sharpens iron, Nick. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, dude, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming. We're gonna have to owe Rachel a meal, the
Yes,
person who hooked us up, because what a
absolutely.
blessing. What a blessing. Let's keep hooking things up. Keep the connections going. Folks, don't forget, you can join me on Thursday for another Tough Through Tender gathering, and next Tuesday for another Facebook Live. Well, we'll see you all later. And if anybody has had anything like stir up from this, you can DM me. It's on the Facebook, and also, Mike, if you just ping me some details, we'll put them in the Facebook feed too. So
Sounds great.
We'll put some resources available for people. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Bye.